Hello, everyone. My name is Chloe Mikolajczak, and I am a campaigner for the Right to Repair campaign, the organization which is organizing this webinar. I am very, very happy to welcome you to our first ever webinar on the challenges and opportunities of the French Repairability Index. Before we dive into the topic, I just wanted to briefly introduce the campaign and the work we have been doing. So the Right to Repair campaign was started in September 2019 by 5 organizations, including the European Environmental Bureau, ECOS, iFixit, Rundertisch Reparatur, and the Restart Project. The coalition has since grown to 40 members in 15 European countries, including environmental organizations, academics, community repair networks, and repair activists, all fighting for longer lasting and more repairable products. We are active both at EU but also national level, campaigning for a universal right to repair our products. If you want to find out more about the campaign, our members and our activities, please go and see repair.eu. A very few technical elements about today's webinar. It will be recorded, so if you can't make it the whole way, it will be available online. You are not able to unmute yourself or share your screen, only the speakers can. If you have any technical issues, please share them in the chat. And if you have any questions, which I'm sure there will be plenty of, please share them in the Q&A feature, which should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can also vote for questions there, and we will share them with our speakers at the end of this webinar. So now let's dive into the topics of the Repairability Index. So since January 1st, 2021, France is the first country in Europe to have implemented a Repairability Index on 5 categories of electronic devices. And the goal is to inform consumers about the repairability of a product, thanks to a grade out of 10. So this index comes with a lot of opportunities, of course, but some challenges as well. And I'm very, very happy to welcome our speakers today. The first one is Jean-Paul Voluntary, who works at the French Ministry of the Ecological Transition. He was part of the team who prepared the regulation and defined the methodology of the Repairability Index. So he's definitely an expert on the issue. Jean-Paul, could you unmute yourself? Jean-Paul, you are still muted.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Well, you said the most important part. I was in the team to prepare the regulation and the methodology. And basically my background is eco-design. So this is almost my last month in the ministry. I will be retired soon. So I like this ending of my career, but I will continue, don't worry. That's all, that's it.
Could we move to the next slide, perhaps?
Okay, so my presentation will be brief. I intend to do it in 20 minutes, so it's less than 2 minutes for each aspect. So we'll go all through all these aspects, and let's go next slide, please. So before the law, it was already prepared. Feuille de route pour l'économie circulaire, FREC. We planned already since February 2018 to have a mandatory repairability index. Of course, this is for both for consumer and for producers. So we can go to next slide. En français, j'appelle ça la cascade des obligations. So in English, I don't know if cascade is still appropriate, but there are two floors, let's say. The producer need to communicate to the consumers the score of each model. of course free of charge. And the sellers are obliged to inform the consumer and also about the score, and also to make available to the consumer the details. So this second aspect for the sellers is very important, but the initiative is in the hands of the consumer. He needs to ask, by the way, can you show me the details of the score? Okay, next slide. It took 18 months to develop the methodology. It was a co-construction process with all the interested parties, manufacturers, distributors, repairers, NGOs, startups, etc., and of course, professional organizations. And this was organized by the public authorities. This is my direction, CGDD, Commissariat Général pour le Développement Durable, and ADEME is the French Agency for Energy and Environment. And now they say they are the agency for the ecological transition. So there were 5 subgroups. You see the product categories. We can maybe come back later, why these and why not others. So after the 18 months of co-construction, there was still 1 year for to prepare the text, the documents, the regulatory documents. We can go to next slide. So here are the criteria. There is something special to say about the price of spare parts, because maybe you know that the Commission and the GRC, the Joint Reserve Center, have been working. They produced a report on this same problematic, how to build a repairability index. But for the Commission, it appeared they thought it's too difficult to grasp the price of spare parts, because of course they vary from country to country. And it was a tough challenge. It was difficult to go through this aspect. Anyway, it's one of the 5 criteria. And of course, on the right side, you see that the last one is specific. It's really related to the product category. So there is a balance. This is why I stay more than 2 minutes on this. Il y a un équilibre. There is a balance. We have 5 aspects and they weight equally. Okay, next slide. So we can see the details, the criteria and the sub-criteria. In general, there are about 13 sub-criteria. It depends with the last one, the criteria number 5, which is specific. So sometimes it's 2 sub-criteria, sometimes 3. But let's say, in general, we have a total of 13 sub-criteria. We will see more details later, so we can go to next slide. So you see about the price, you see that it's a ratio, in fact, the price of spare parts divided by the price of the new product, let's say. And it makes a line. So there is some kind of mathematics behind. The cheaper the spare parts, the better is your score for this aspect. We can go to next slide. So there were 5 subgroups, but in the end, when we had to give the details in the decrees, in the ministerial decrees, we divided the electric lawn mowers into three sub category, let's say, wired mowers, battery mowers, robots. So we have a total of 7 decrees giving the details how to calculate, etc. And we didn't give much time for the companies to get prepared. It entered into force on the 1st of January, but our regulatory documents were issued officially on the last day of 2020. So don't think they could do that in one night. They had the tools to calculate since in French since September and in English since October. So in fact, they had 2 or 3 months to get prepared. And of course, not all of them are ready now. We can go to the next slide. So this is the, let's say, the logo, the picto. This is mandatory. It should be in French, and this is the repairability. You have the score out of 10. And there is a color. According, if you have low level, middle level, etc., you have 5 colors. We will see that at the end of the presentation. Next slide. So let's go into details. We decided early in the process of construction, co-construction, we decided to have a matrix approach. So in fact, we discriminate what happens for the producer, what happens for the retailers of spare parts, what happens for the repairers, and what's made available for consumers. And it goes spare part by spare part. This is criteria number 3 about availability. These are years, and the number of points, let's say, are equal to the number of years. And after that, we come out with for each sub-criteria, we come out with a score out of 10. And then we aggregate, etc. And finally, it also comes out under the form of a score out of 10. We can go to the next slide. So this is another example of the matrix approach. This is about the assistance à distance. Let's say, I think you get the message anyway. So you see the levels. Generally, we distinguish 3 steps. This is not about the type of actor. This is not about, well, a little bit what you do for repairers, what you do for consumers, but mostly you have 3 steps. You give information, you help for the diagnosis, or you help for the reparation itself. Next slide, please. So the decrees had to be very compact, of course. So not all the details are in the decrees, dans les décrets ministériels. So we issued an instructions manual for the calculation. This document has about 10, let's say 10 or 12 pages. There are 2 pages for annexes, so let's say there are 10 pages of details, how you should understand the rules, how you should understand the words, the terminology. It's quite technical, so and there are many different situations in the industry. So I wouldn't say the question is how to interpret, because there is no subjective margin. It's very technical, but what is behind each word needed to be written down. Okay, next slide. So it's about the calculation itself. This tool is based on transparency, and you need to use a calculation tool. You don't see it on the picture. I couldn't get it as a screen copy d'écran, but you have a number of limited choices. Here you cannot see it. I'm sorry, I couldn't get it properly. So, c'est un calcul dirigé. You are obliged to follow the rules and to give the proper answer. We will discuss this, of course, I think. Next slide. So this is the most important part, practically speaking. We call this page the rating detail, or we could put the plural as well, rating details. Anyway, these are the 13 scores, basic scores, according to the 13 sub-criteria, and it comes out under 5 criteria, and finally under the repairability index. This page, by the law, should be made available to the consumer by the seller in the shop or online. This is by the seller. And also, this page should be, by the law, made available to any requester by the producer. So this is a twofold obligation. The super detail of the criteria are not supposed to be public. The producer could not stand more transparency. So they need to come out publicly with the 13 values for the 13 sub-criteria. This is the only sentence which is written in red, because this is the operational aspect of this system. Curiosity, comparison is in the hands of the consumers. Okay, next slide. So it's a self-declaration system, as many other systems. We say it frankly, and this will raise some kind of doubts or controversy, but it's very common when you inform the consumer. It's mostly self-declaration, and also the respect of the safety regulation is also self-declared. People are not aware, but many systems are self-declaration systems, and in that case, it comes under the control and sanctions of the public authorities. But not only. The consumers can download the calculation tools and more or less check by themselves and challenge the producer if they think something is wrong. So, next slide, please. This last slide. with the colors from red to dark green, let's say. This is the la ribambelle. I call it la ribambelle. I don't know how to translate that. Anyway, it's a poetic image. Well, according to the score, you get a color. And this is a tool in the hands of consumers. Compare, be curious, and it has begun. The manufacturers begin to change their design or the number of years for the availability of spare parts, etc. So for them, it's actually a challenge. Okay, that's almost the end. Next slide. Yes, all the documents and tools can be downloaded at this address. You have the decrees. One is transversal, the other are by categories. You also have the calculation manual. You have the automatic calculation tools, and some of these are available in French and in English. Okay, next slide is thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Jean-Paul. It was very interesting to listen to your explanation of the technical aspects of the index. So thank you for taking the time to join us today. I see already quite a lot of really interesting questions. May I ask you, if you ask questions during the two next presentations, to just add the organization you represent, if you represent one. That will be helpful. So now our second speaker is Laetitia Vasseur. She's the co-founder and executive officer of HOP, which means Halte à l'obsolescence programmée, the French NGO fighting for a society free of planned obsolescence. And HOP is also a member of the Right to Repair campaign. Laetitia is an expert in circular economy and lobbying. She's a member of ACT committee to the French Ministry of Ecological Transition, and she's the vice president of the Institute of Responsible Digital. Thank you, Laetitia, for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this invitation. I hope you'll see my screen. Yes. So I will speak about the implication of HOP, the association Halte à l'obsolescence programmée, which is a Stop Planned Obsolescence. We also have a website in English if you like to see Stop Planned Obsolescence. And we represent around 40,000 person as a community to defend the consumer and environment. And we have this big challenge to extend lifetime of products as we wish they are more repairable and durable. So we are a small team of four people with a community of volunteers, and we work with ECOS or BE on a European level. And we worked also with the French government as we claim for this index of durability and repairability as in our lobbying mission, and we are happy that it's in the French law right now. So I will not speak about how it worked because Jean-Paul Voluntary just did it very well. So I will explain more maybe what should be the limit, could be the limit, or some detail about what we think now about this index. So the mission for us, objective was to tackle planned obsolescence, which can be technical, but also logicial with the software, or psychological, aesthetical. And for us, it's really important to care about this for all kind of products. And we think that the index of repairability is a tool, is a progress in order to get products more repairable and to be able to tackle, of course, technical obsolescence and indirect obsolescence, with the problem of the issue of reparation, but also software. So we were very vigilant, and it was really important for us to care about this dimension in the index of repairability, because if you get a computer that you have a good grade of repairability, but you have a problem of software and it was not in the index, at the end, the product is not repairable. So for us, it was really important. And about the aesthetical part, we think that the index can also play a role, as people are more informed about the way they could repair, and we can see that it help an offer of services to respond to the demand of reparation. So as we worked already about smartphone and wash machine, for example, we were really happy that this category were considered. To give some context about smartphone, for example, there were a lawsuit in France that we proposed because of the Apple were not enough durable for us because of the software. And at the end, we get 25 million of sanction for Apple, not for planned obsolescence, but for another juridic tool, but it's quite similar at the end. And the sanction was also in Italy and in other countries, like in US. So it was a very big topic, the smartphone. And we think that there were a lot of progress to get. And we are happy that they are concerned with this mandatory label. As the same as a wash machine, as we did a report that it's in French, sorry for the English speaker. But it was really interesting to see how finally the reparation was the main problem for the wash machine durability, and especially the price of spare piece, for example, which was at the same price as the new machine almost. So it was a very big problem, and I am happy that thanks to Jean-Paul Voluntary and the minister team, the price of spare piece were considered in this index. That was not a big, not easy to get, and I am happy it's inside this index. And if there were a European label, I think it should be really important also to care about the price and to control the price, to give a good grade or bad grade. If I speak now about the limits, I would say that I am afraid that the notes are not easy to differentiate. And if it's too easy to get some points, we can be afraid that the people don't trust the index at the end. If you get 8 to 10, that it's apparently good grade of repairability. But if they get this good grade because finally, because it was just too easy to get some points, yeah, we don't tackle the main objective. So it's really important to don't be too easy to give a good grade, and also to be able to differentiate that at the end we don't have all products between 7 and 8, because it will be a problem. To choose to give this tool for consumer to be able to choose right. But for now, we don't know yet. So I think we will have 1 year to have feedback and to be able to consider it. And I hope to move and to correct this index if we see that the results are too similar. The other big problem for us right now is transparency. We claim a lot at the association of for a big transparency, and we were happy for in one hand because we have this information that you see on my screen that all consumer can see also or claim when they buy a product. But here it's in French, but for example, you have the delay of to get a price, to get a spare piece when you ask for it. If this delay is short, you have good grade as a manufacturer. If you have a long delay or you don't have the spare piece, you have a very bad grade, right? So here you can see, for example, 7, 8, 9, okay. But how long is this delay? For the consumer is not clear. You don't know if it's 1 day, 2 days, you have a grade, you don't know what it means. So at the end, it will be really difficult for the consumer to claim for the right. He will not be able to know what does it mean really in the real life. So the transparency is really tricky here. And for organization like OP or iFixit, I guess we have more detail. We are able to try to understand what it means, this grade. But for the common consumer, it will be really difficult. So I am afraid that they will not be able to claim for the right of repairability easily. And at the end, maybe the manufacturer can hide with this grade and not telling the truth. So here is a big challenge, I guess, for the index. The other big challenge will be the control. As you know, this note is self-made by the manufacturer. They can say what they want pretty much. So of course the score and the work we have done with the minister is really good quality, and the criteria are strict. It's quite objective, but at the end it's the manufacturer who gives the note. So we need to have a big control of what they say, to control the information with the reality. So the state will, in French, they will have the mandatory to be, it will be their work to control, but we know that the French government doesn't have enough resources to do this for all products. So we claim for collaborative control, for citizen control. And for example, we start to do it with a platform Produits Durables in French. We give advice and ranking of grade of the durability and repairability thanks to reparator or thanks to consumers that give feedback on their product. And we hope that we can help to give collaborative control and to point the brands that will not play will not be fair play with the declaration of a fair index. And I think this will be a very big challenge to give a good pressure that will oblige in some way the brands to be fair in this declaration. Also, for sure, we would like that this index concern more products. For example, printers, we did also a report on it and a lawsuit, and that it's still not finished. And we think that there is big problem about durability and repairability on these products, and it should be concerned by the index, but as well as a lot of other products. To be able to tackle this challenge of extending the durability, we are also animating a club, the Club of Durability, with companies that we already have around 20 companies of different size and different sectors, and we want with them to also to be able to propose a group of working group to a workshop about creating a new index for new category of products, and we are quite optimistic that we will be able to make so. We would like also to extend this label in Europe because, of course, we will have more impact in the single market. But also, I want to be careful that if the extension take place in Europe, the ambition should be also very high, as well as French have done. Because if we have European level label, but it's not mandatory or it's less ambitious, you don't care about the price of spare piece or different detail that count a lot at the end, I am afraid that it will not be enough. So we have to keep a very high ambition in the European level. To go further, and it will be the end of my presentation, I think the French reparation index is a very good progress, but it's not enough. I think we should go further and get the lifetime product repair label, and I mean durability, like robustness. We should know if the product is able or not to fail before to be able to be repairable. So the repairable aspect for us is really important. But first, we need to know if they are more or less able to fail. And this will happen in France in 2024. It's right in the law. So we are very excited about this progress of a durable label and not only a repairable label. Also, I think we should in Europe claim altogether for a usage meter, as we have on car system. You can see the kilometer on that you have done with your car. Why not having a usage meter on a computer, television, washing machine? And I think it could help for transparency and for the second-hand market. Also, we claim with organization and coalition for the right to repair in Europe, for the digital equality and warranty about digital. Like I said, software obsolescence is really important and more in the future. And protection of consumer with warranty that in France is 2 years, and I think it should be more, and at least 2 years in all Europe, but even more. And controlling advertising and advertisement, because we can't say to consumer, be a good consumer, buy products that is repairable, durable, but in the same time telling them every day, many times a day, buy more, buy new products. So we really need to tackle also aesthetical obsolescence to finally get the circular economy that we wish. Thank you, and I will be happy to answer some questions.
Thank you, Laetitia. That was really interesting to hear your thoughts on the limitations of the index, and you've mentioned there are quite a few. Just a reminder before we move on to the next presentation, there are already quite a lot of questions in the Q&A box. If you could go and vote for the one that you think are the most urgent or the most relevant, so that they can go up and we can prioritize these, because I am not sure we'll have time to ask all of them. We'll do our best. But now moving on to our third speaker, Ernestas. All the revas. I promise I'll do better next time. Ernestas is a program manager at the European Environmental Citizens Organization for Standardization, mostly known as ECOS, which is an international NGO advocating for environmentally friendly technical standards, policy, and laws. At ECOS, he works to ensure that European institutions and international standards guarantee that electronic products are sustainable. He is also a member of the Right to Repair steering group. So welcome, Ernestas, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chloe, and hello, everyone. Good morning. It's a pretty grim day out in Brussels, and very happy to be talking about a topic that is much more upbeat. And so I'll try and be brief in my presentation so that we have a bit more time left for the questions, but we'll nonetheless try and say a few words about what exactly does the French Repairability Index that has just been presented actually mean for Europe. So Chloe has already said a few words about ECOS, so I will perhaps skip that, just to say that we are a network-based environmental NGO bringing together over 50 member organizations from across Europe and beyond, and we are leading together with other organizations 2 campaigns: Right to Repair campaign that organizes this webinar, as well as the Cool Products campaign, which advocates for ambitious product policy in Europe. Before I talk more about the French Repairability Index, I thought it's perhaps a good idea to spend a quick moment discussing the broader context and why we are discussing and advocating for right to repair as NGOs in Europe. As it happens, that really is not something that is just a nice to have, but indeed a pressing priority. I've included a few data points on the slide, a lot of which I suppose will be familiar to many of you, or hopefully. E-waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the world. Its growth rates are 3 times faster than the world's population. As it happens in Europe, we have a number of countries that are leading in e-waste figures, with overall over 15 kilograms of e-waste being generated per person in Europe every year. And we know that we only collect some 38% of that to recycle, and then the actual recycling rates are, of course, much lower than that still. We also know that let's say, our consumption of digital devices weighs heavily not only on resources that we consume, but also on the climate. The World Economic Forum has estimated that by 2040, the use and production of electronics is expected to be responsible for 14% of total greenhouse gas emissions. That is 1.5 times those of the global transport sector, which I suppose very well illustrates the impact that our transition to the digital to digital is having on the environment and the climate. And mitigating those impacts requires us to reduce our consumption, but also significantly increase the amount of products that we reuse, that we repair and we remanufacture. And that should indeed become the norm in Europe and beyond. So let's say the scale of the problem has increasingly been recognized in Europe as it happens, and there is increasing support for right to repair across Europe in various national strategies, including France, that has been discussed earlier, but also by the EU institutions. So the right to repair has been for the first time recognized as a possible tool to address our increasing consumption of and impacts of digital devices under the EU Green Deal, and there has been much more detail provided in the subsequent Circular Economy Action Plan, a blueprint of the Commission for the coming years, which aims to reduce our material footprint. The two co-legislative institutions of the European Union, so the European Parliament and the member state governments in the EU Council, have also come out strongly in favor of tackling premature obsolescence of devices, increasing their repairability, and informing consumers about better informing consumers about how their purchasing choices can be steered towards best performing and most sustainable products. The European Parliament has last year passed a resolution on how to make the single market more sustainable, with a number of far-reaching demands on how that can be achieved, and a number of those, including a call for a repairability score to be introduced, are also being echoed in the resolution that is being prepared on the circular economy that is to be voted by the plenary next week. And then a number of these demands, again, including on introducing a repair score in Europe, have also been advocated by EU member state governments in the recent Council conclusions on circular and green recovery. All this to say that a number of wide-ranging promises have been made in strategy documents, and so there's much to be hopeful about. But of course, the devil will lie in the detail, and we'll have to see what concrete proposals will be made to achieve the objectives that have been set out. As it happens, we are not starting from scratch. So the European Union has, in 2019, introduced a number of eco-design measures tackling repairability, particularly focusing on household appliances. And these laws will start being effective as of this year. So we will be able to evaluate their impact. And And so that means that there's something to build upon, but there's much more to be done. There's important proposals planned for this year that have a lot of potential on really introducing a system shift towards more informed consumers and better designs. We have an initiative of the European Commission to empower consumers for the green transition that is intended to increase and improve the information that the consumers are provided about sustainability of their products, but also tackle greenwashing as well as planned obsolescence. And then later in the year still, we have planned sustainable products and circular electronics initiatives, which are going to include requirements for smartphones, tablets, computers, and fingers crossed, finger printers too, in order to improve their durability, reusability, and repairability. Something that is also currently being discussed with a particular focus on batteries through the new proposal for regulation on batteries, which would mandate for all batteries to be replaceable by the user. And that is a law that is still pending for adoption by the two legislative institutions of the European Union. Which I suppose then brings me to a few points related to today's topic specifically, and what exactly the French Repair Index mean for the EU. It is, I think, quite clear from the surveys that we have seen, and generally also from the fact, from the interest that also this webinar, for example, has received, that there is a lot of interest in increasing and improving the amount of information that consumers receive about sustainability of their purchases. We know that consumers would like to be much more engaged in the green transition and know more about what impact their consumption has on the climate and the environment, and yet this information very often remains difficult to obtain, or is difficult to compare, and that's why I think the French repairability index demonstrates that it is possible to introduce a tool that is both that kind of tackles both of these issues by mandating a single index to be displayed on all of the products. That means that they can be compared between one another, and then it also tackles the issue of information to being very complex by aggregating it and then providing it in an easy to understand way to the consumer. As I've mentioned already, there's strong support for this by both the EU Council and the European Parliament as of recently. So there is hope to be had. These discussions, the discussions on, let's say, introducing a repairability score or a similar index as is introduced in France, have taken place in Europe. There's been discussions for the past couple of years, and the European Union's the European Commission's research arm, the Joint Research Center, has done quite some work on putting forward some reports on how this could be achieved, what kind of aspects should be included. There's been European standards developed that can be used to put forward methodologies for the assessment of repairability and durability of different devices. So there has been some activity. However, there's not been much concrete talk about how to implement this and roll it out concretely in practice in Europe. And so therefore, there's definitely hope to be had that the French example provides a much needed impetus, but also a learning opportunity. So as has been presented by Laetitia, and as we know from also the experience of the generally very successful energy label, policy tools are rarely perfect at the start. So there's always some aspects that need to be improved as we go along. And I think the fact that we have this pioneering experience in France means that when and hopefully soon, and hopefully that happens soon, we introduce a similar index in Europe, it can be robust. It can provide, let's say, granular information that differentiates between different products, and that can address the different aspects that are perhaps not perfect at the moment. It is from our side as ECOS and our partner organizations, we have been advocating for EU energy label, a much recognized tool to be used for the purpose of introduction of a repairability score. We believe that this is, let's say, an easy to use legislative instrument. It is already well recognized, and we believe that this would bring together a number of, let's say, important environmental performance aspects together and work together. The fact that the European Commission is planning to look into requirements for smartphones, tablets, and computers this year means that, you know, we have a perfect opportunity for this to be rolled out as soon as 2023. One other aspect that I wanted to mention is, of course, that in addition to providing information to consumers, the French Repairability Index is also a useful tool, not only because of the fact that consumers can be steered towards a best performing product, but also because it gathers a lot of data that can then be used to base policy on much more rigid analysis. Very often we see data gaps in policy making, and that I think this tool will help close that. And then last but not least, of course, it's important to stress that while introducing an index and information aimed towards the consumer that empowers them to choose the best products and steers the market and let's say rewards companies that innovate towards most durable, long-lasting, and repairable products. Europe needs to let's say step up its game and introduce minimum requirements so that we have both push and pull factors combined, that we ensure that there's minimum requirements for repairability and durability that set the basic level that is acceptable. And I think on that hopeful note, I will conclude. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to the questions.
Thank you so much, Ernestas. If I may just add a quick thing to your presentation is that at EU level, the next steps, if this gets ever voted, we will need the support from the member states on this. And so if there are any organizations or people in the attendance that are keen to campaign on this issue specifically at the national level to put pressure and to put the word out about this repairability index, about the opportunities that this can represent at EU level, please get in touch. It will be very interesting for the process to have the support from the European countries when this is eventually put into a vote at the EU level. I wanted to thank our three speakers. I also wanted to thank the audience because we do have a lot of questions. I don't think, unfortunately, that we'll be able to go through all of them, but please note that we have written them down and we'll try to answer them in a different way, either through a blog post or an FAQ on the issue. The first question is a very practical one, and it is for Jean-Paul. It comes from Max Oosterbroek, I think, and the question is, does the score have to be visible on the packaging, or can it be inside, or with a QR code, for instance? Jean-Paul, can you let us know your thoughts on that? You're muted, Jean-Paul. Thanks.
Okay. In the shelves, in the shops, it should be near the product. That's what the decree says. À proximité. And online, it should be next to the price. That's all. It's for the producer to choose if he wants to put it on the package or not. It's for him to decide. The obligation for the producer is to transmit the information to the seller, and the seller should put it à proximité du produit. Online, next to the price.
Thanks Thank you, Jean-Paul. The second one, I'd like to ask it to Ernestas. And the question from João Dominguez is, what is more important, a part that lasts longer or a part that it's not good, but is easy to be replaced?
Right. Thank you for the question. I think I wouldn't necessarily see this as a dichotomy that genuinely exists in practice. It is our experience from having analyzed products that exist on the market that the two can very well go hand in hand. We know of products of smartphones, for example. There's wide variation across products, but we know of some products that have very good IP ratings, but also are easy to repair. It is also our view that, for example, a very high IP rating, so very resistant phone that to drops, to dust, and to water, ingress, for example, that, however, cannot be easily taken apart, and the replacement of, let's say, battery of which is very expensive, will at the end of the day reach its end of life at the same time as its battery, essentially. So I think the way to look at this is to really analyze this as aspects that go hand in hand. We believe that products should be designed to both last long, should have software that supports that, but also have be made easy to repair when they break, so to ensure that they can be having not only one long lifetime, but also subsequently be remanufactured if needed or reused.
Thanks. Thank you, Anastas, for this. My next question is for Laetitia, and it's from Louis, who works at Nesta. And he says, it strikes me that a device that is impossible to open is impossible to repair, yet a manufacturer could score full points on all other factors and get an 8 out of 10 grade. How will the index cope with this, given that the scores for each of the 5 factors are simply added together?
Yeah, I think it's more a question for Jean-Paul, but the system have been done that it's a good package that you can't do like to get a good note so easily. But I will let maybe Jean-Paul explain better.
Well, the note will be a catastrophe because on 2 criteria it will be 0. On availability, because availability is not valid unless you can access separately to each spare part. And the ease to disassemble, also there will be 0. It will be a catastrophe.
Okay. The next question, I think similarly, I'm going to ask it to Laetitia, but if Jean-Paul, you want to add something after that, it'd be great to have your views on it as well. It's from Peter, and he's asking, can we really expect consumers and other consumer protection agencies can act as reliable watchdogs and auditors of manufacturer reported ratings? For example, wasn't it revealed during the Volkswagen diesel scandal that many of the automakers were cheating on their self-reported auto ratings?
Yeah, I think it's a big challenge, and I think it would be a good thing that there is some organizations that are able to make audit control to check that the brand doesn't cheat on the index. I think we can organize ourselves working with iFixit, with other organizations in Europe to test the note and to give some information about this like an alternative opinion on this grade. I think all the criteria will not be easy to control, but a lot of them can be. So at least we have a part of citizen control that it's possible. it's not gonna be easy, but it's possible. And then there is a big question of resources. Who will pay for this? And this can be a big challenge also, because of course it's important for consumer, but the consumer probably are not ready to pay for this control. It should be the role of state, but we know that neither the state doesn't have enough resources for this. So yeah, I guess it's a very important question, and we can also join our efforts with different organizations working together in order to give the best result for citizen control.
Jean-Paul, it'd be great to hear your thoughts on that, and especially on the funding and who will pay for this work.
Well, it's not so much a question of cost. I mean, the lobbies, especially including the repairers, will do that for free. They will be glad to announce on LinkedIn or other social media that they found out something very tricky from the part of a specific producer. It's not a matter of cost. And I would like to underline it. So in my knowledge, according to my knowledge, it's the first time the consumer has a tool to simulate, let's say, the score. He has the calculation tool. So not only the consumer, but the NGOs and the repairers. And I know they are already checking. We know they are already checking for free.
Thank you, Jean-Paul, for that. And indeed, I think it has been asked somewhere else, but the question of who will fund this work is quite important, especially from civil society's perspective. Moving on to the next question from Panda, and I think this is for Jean-Paul again. And the question is, when you say there is no subjectivity, this is something you mentioned about the grade, do you mean you had the scoring for a same product done by a manufacturer and an NGO, and you did end up with the same score?
Yeah, it's an automatic tool.
Okay, so the fact that you have to select within the sheet. Okay.
I mean, okay, there are number of prepared answers. So the only thing is to cheat. We cannot stop people from trying. Some producers trying to cheat, to say false declaration. But then the sanctions are quite heavy, and the reputation also will be damaged. So from the very big and serious producers, I already have testimonies. I don't know if it's correct. I mean, confidence that they want to be very, very careful in their declaration, because they know they are watched. They are under the vigilance of journalists, etc.
And when you say cheat, you mean a manufacturer just putting a wrong, selecting one of the wrong answers in the sheet?
Yeah.
Okay. Iran is asking about the extension of the index to other products, because it's currently valid for only 5 products. What other ones will follow? Have you already selected that? Is there a plan? And if so, I'm adding that last question. If so, what's the timeline for adding new products?
Is this for me?
I mean, I guess so. Yes.
Well, we have plans. Personally, I would like that we progress at least with three new product groups each year. But this is a personal wish. I will, as I said before, I will leave the ministry. I will be en retraite. I will retire in 1 month. So it will be left to my colleagues. But they wish more than me. I wish 3 product groups each year, and they wish more. There is no timeline yet.
Okay, good to hear. There are quite a few questions about pricing, so I'm trying to maybe put them together, but there is one from Daniela who says, how do you review the price of spare parts? For examples, are there any limits in relation to the price of a product? And I think that relates to what you explained during your presentation, but maybe if you could elaborate a little bit on that. And then on price, there was also Thomas, who was saying that the price is very important. Has there been any extensive testing of devices in the market as basis for the score? I guess these two are also for Jean-Paul. If you could answer that on the price and the importance of the price in the final score.
Well, the weight of the price ratio is very important. Is 1/5 of the 20% of the final score, and it's quite difficult to obtain points. It goes from 10% until 30%. Of course, it's a reverse. It's if it's too expensive, if the spare parts are too expensive, you get 0. If the price goes down in relation with the price of the model itself, starting at 30 going down, you begin to get points, and then you have the maximum if you go until 10%, and it's an average value we've taken from the 5 most important pieces. So it's quite sophisticated. The best is to go on our website and to check the documents. What price should be taken? Sometimes it's a dominant price. When it's a launching of a new product, it's the lowest price, because a producer has many customers, etc., etc. It's a very sophisticated question, and I don't want people to be lost. It's better to read all the rules that are in the regulatory documents. I summarized it saying that you start getting points below 30%, and if you go so far as 10%, then you have the maximum.
Thank you. Maybe one for Laetitia. I think Jean-Paul's mentioned it during his presentation, but it's from Stuart, and he's asking whether software availability is included in the assessment. You did mention the importance of software, and he's adding that many of the devices that they see at their repair cafe have microcontrollers, and if this is a failed part, the device is not repairable, as it is impossible to get the software to load, even if the microcontroller is available. Could you elaborate on that, Laetitia?
Yeah, it have been included, but for us, not enough. But for example, now they can get a point if they will advise for a new download of a new version of the software. Yeah, and Jean-Paul maybe can add about it, but yeah, for us it was maybe the minimum, but it was not enough yet. So we are expecting much more progress for the index of durability, really the lasting of products that we expect for 2024. Maybe the spirit was not completely ready to work on this topic because it's quite new. A lot of stakeholder doesn't have a good idea about how to tackle it, and so maybe it was too new at this time. But we need really to progress on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Laetitia. I have 2 questions for Ernestas now, and it's about the EU perspective. So the first one, which is quite vague, but it's when can we expect a repairability/durability index voted into European law? And the second one, which is super relevant, it's what will happen to the French repairability index if/when we have an EU legislation on this issue in force?
Right. Thank you. Both very good and interesting questions, and not necessarily particularly easy neither. When can we expect a repair score in Europe? Well, that I think the best answer to that would be to reiterate Chloe's call to action, because that of course depends on the extent to which the EU institutions, including member state governments, call for this to happen. So there are strategy documents indicating that this is the direction in which the EU should go, but the speed of it very much depends on the political will. We know that the Circular Electronics Initiative is planned for the end of the year, and to me, it would, and then to all the partner organizations that we work with, it is clear that this presents an excellent opportunity to put forward a comprehensive proposal which tackles not only minimum sustainability requirements for the most problematic product groups that I've mentioned, smartphones, tablets, computers, and printers, but also to introduce labels for these specific products. Then that, I suppose, brings me to the question of what would happen to the French score. Well, once, if it depends a little bit of what kind of approach would be taken by the EU, would it be, but if let's say the approach taken would be to introduce the repairability score on the EU energy label for specific products, then I suppose the overlap would have to be avoided by the French label being subsumed by the European label, which would be built in, let's say, learning from the experiences of the latter.
Thank you, Ernestas. I have a very last question for Jean-Paul, and then I think we can wrap up because we're already a little bit over time. And that question is about the sanctions for the manufacturer that do not respect the index or cheat, as you were saying. Can you explain how the two amounts were calculated or balanced, taking into account how expensive a device is and how much revenue a company might achieve with that device?
Well, it's written in the law, in Article 16 of our law about circular economy. It's not the ministry who decided that, it's the deputies. So, I mean, I think they work by experience. The interesting thing is that the sanctions are 15,000 euro per model. In case there is a lack, in case there is no communication about the score. So, I mean, it's just the usual thing prepared by the Assembly, the Assemblée Nationale. The government had no word to say on that. Anyway, I think it's quite dissuasive. Also, the name and shame aspect, which goes together, will be also a catastrophe for the reputation of the companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that concludes the interventions of our speakers really well. I would like to thank our three speakers for taking the time to come today and speak about this. I would like to thank all the attenders for the interest in this issue. We've had over 150 people attending the webinar today. It has been recorded, so if you were not able to listen to everything, or if you'd like to re-listen to it, it will be available probably by the end of the week or early next week. There will also be a blog post summarizing the main points of today's discussion. As I was saying, if you feel like campaigning on this issue or doing anything on this issue at national level, if you are an organization or even a community repair group that wants to raise awareness about this in your country, please feel free to get in touch. We will need to make a lot of noise when this happens at EU level. I would also like to remind you that this webinar was organized by the Right to Repair campaign. And if you feel like donating for the work that we are doing to achieve a universal right to repair, both at European and at national level, you can do so by going to the repair.eu website. And I think that is pretty much it on my side. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to our speakers. Thanks to the attendees, and have a lovely rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.